Open a geology textbook in Slovenia, and you'll find page after page about dolines. Open one in Florida, and the very same landform appears under a different name, the sinkhole. 2 words, one hole in the ground, or is the story slightly more complicated than that? Both terms belong to karst landscapes, regions where the bedrock, usually limestone but also dolomite, gypsum, or even salt, slowly dissolves in water. As rainwater seeps through cracks, it eats away at the rock and leaves behind caves, underground rivers, and closed hollows at the surface. A doline is the scientific name for one of those hollows, a closed depression that drains internally, sending rainwater underground instead of into streams. The shape varies, cylindrical, conical, bowl-shaped, or as shallow as a dish, and the size ranges from a few meters to over 100. The word itself traveled into geology through German from Doline, a Slavic term meaning valley. That makes sense because the classic karst country between Slovenia and Italy is where these landforms were first studied in detail and where European science picked up its vocabulary. A sinkhole, on the other hand, is the everyday North American word for the same kind of feature. The U.S. Geological Survey describes it as ground with no natural external drainage. When it rains, the water stays inside the depression and sinks down into the rock below. So far, the 2 terms sound interchangeable, and in most contexts, they genuinely are. The National Cave and Karst Research Institute states it plainly: sinkholes are the most recognized surface landform in karst, and in many parts of the world they are simply called dolines. The first real difference is geography of language rather than geography of land. European researchers, following that Slavic and German tradition, prefer doline in scientific writing, while American English, both popular and technical, overwhelmingly says sinkhole. Same hole, different dictionary. There's a second, subtler split in how specialists use the words. Dolines form through 2 main processes: slow dissolution, where rock is gradually dissolved from the surface downward, and collapse, where the roof of an underground cavity suddenly gives way. In engineering geology, sinkhole often carries that second dramatic meaning specifically: a steep-sided depression created when rock or soil abruptly drops into a void below. That's the version that swallows cars and makes the news, and it's why the word feels more alarming than doline. Doline, by contrast, stays neutral and broad. A gentle, grassy bowl that took 50,000 years of dissolution to form is a doline, and so is a fresh collapse pit. The term describes the landform itself, without implying that anything sudden ever happened. You can see both meanings in the field. The Mendip Hills in England hold thousands of these closed hollows, mostly modest features up to 20 meters deep, while collapsed dolines elsewhere grow enormous as material is removed chemically and mechanically down at the groundwater level. The distinction matters most when hazards enter the picture. A landscape dotted with dissolution dolines may sit stable for millennia, but engineers mapping sinkhole susceptibility want to know which depressions could still collapse, which is why scientific papers often write dolines sinkholes to cover both audiences at once. Add in the regional cousins, cenotes in Mexico, swallowholes and swallets in Britain, and a pattern emerges: one landform, many names, each shaped by the language and the worries of the people living on top of it. So the cleanest way to put it, every sinkhole is a doline, scientifically speaking, but the words pull in different directions. Doline is the calm technical label for any closed karst depression. Sinkhole is the popular term that leans towards sudden, ground-opening collapse. Next time a headline announces a sinkhole swallowing a street, remember that geologists have been quietly cataloging dolines for more than a century. The ground wasn't behaving strangely, it was doing what soluble rock has always done, just on a schedule nobody had checked.